The 2022 midterm elections are upon us, and the big question for activists and those who care about liberty and freedom is, what can you do to prepare? Well, let's find out. Thank you for watching. My name is Glen Morgan, and this is We the Governed. We are reporting from Washington State, the state of eternal emergency, and the state where Inslee's Ministry of COVID Compliance has never approved anything that I've put up on this channel. And I want to warn everybody, as a trigger warning, that if you only want to see what the governor wants you to see, please stop watching now. Now, even though I am focused on Washington State, I want to make a point of saying that most of the information I'm presenting here is actually pretty much valid for you, regardless of where you are, but there's some specific details that I'll cover that is applicable only to Washington State. So we know that these 2022 elections are coming up, and for those who care about liberty and freedom, there's a sense that there's a red wave of some kind going. I don't like to always get into this partisan differential, but if you care about liberty and freedom, it's likely that if you can get good candidates who are capable of articulating that message and who are serious about running for office, that we can probably get more of them in office today, or at least these next election cycle, than we've had currently right now. So it's nice if you want to engage and make a difference and get people like that in office. But the question is, how should you prepare for it now? I'm doing this video January of 2022. There's no such thing as being too early. I believe in being an activist year-round, but a lot of people tend to like to focus on campaign season. And so I want to get this video out here so that you can start thinking about what you can do that's effective. There's a lot of ways to waste time, but what can you do that's most effective? And I think one thing that we have to start out and look at least when it comes to Washington State, is understanding the people that are actually on the ballot. Who can you work for, or what office can you run for that's going to be on the ballot in 2022? Because that's not the state governor. Governor was elected 2 years ago. We're done with him. Well, I wish we were, but anyway, he's on the ballot. He's not up for election this cycle. However, every single state legislator, all 98 of them, are up for election this cycle. And that's just like a congressman back in D.C. All 10 of the congressmen in Washington State are also on the ballot, and that is true for all the state legislators. So if you like your legislator, now's the time to get involved and help them get reelected. And if you don't like them, probably now's the time to start thinking about what you can do to make a change there. Or if you don't want to make any changes where you live and you don't think your legislator is under any threat, you can go out and get involved in some of the other legislative races. So that's important to remember. Those are the guys that are basically guys and gals that are on the ballot this next cycle. When it comes to the state Senate, because they have 4-year terms, they are only about half of them are up for election this cycle. So similar story. If you like them, get involved. If you don't, then try to replace them. But only half of them are up, so it's worth doing a little bit of research, finding out if your local state senator or if a nearby state senator is up for election. It gives you something to work on, and that can make a difference of what's going on in Olympia with some of the crazy bills that we've talked about in our recent, some of the recent videos that we've had here. But frequently overlooked and ignored is the fact that many, many county officials are up for election this cycle. So in 2021, a lot of city council seats were up, a lot of school board races were up, but on those even years, those midterm election cycles, there's a lot of county offices that are going to be on the ballot. And this is particularly true for those who actually want to go out and make a difference in your community. If you don't want to spend your time rioting and you don't think that's an effective way to make a difference, and I don't think it is, then get involved in the election process really matters. And in Washington State, we have 39 different counties, and every county is going to have local elected officials. Now, if you live in one of the 7 counties that are blue here, you have, this doesn't really apply to you, but if you're in one of the other 32 counties, which is a decent chunk of Washington State, there's a ton of elected officials there, and they're almost all on the ballot in 2022. And when I say that, these counties are basically organized under the original commission structure in the Washington State Constitution, so they haven't gone through a home rule charter process. So the counties that are in white here, this really applies to them. The counties in blue are different. Most of those people are under different election cycle terms. So this means that most county-wide offices are going to be up for election in 2022. And when I say county-wide offices, this is something I'm really specifically referencing here. These are positions like the assessor, the auditor, the clerk, the sheriff, the prosecutor, the treasurer, usually one of the 3 county commissioners. They're up for election. They're going to be on the ballot this year. And something to note on this, now some of the smaller counties don't have coroners. Some of them combine those with the prosecutor's office. So there are some variations. You need to be familiar with how your county's set up and exactly who these guys are that are running on that ballot. There's also district court judges and stuff. And these are really worthwhile positions to pay attention to. Each of them affects your life in one way or another, where you live in your community, where you can make the most difference. And some of them require some specialized skills. And it's really worth paying attention because these people affect your lives more than you realize. They affect us far more than we realize. The assessor, the treasurer, the auditor, they're in charge of elections. There's all kinds of abilities to make changes in who represents you in these positions. But it does require you to have some planning and some research, and it's always better to start early. So one of the questions that usually comes up, because this is the time of year, I usually get inundated from now until May. Filing week is in May, and what that means, that's your final day to actually file your documents and run for office. Between now and then, I get inundated, usually with hundreds of people all around Washington State who are planning or interested in, or they think they can run for office. And just as a little, backup, if you've never held elected office before, and you think that you can run for governor or you think you can run for congressman, I'm going to say that that's pretty unlikely. That's a pretty unlikely path of success. However, I get all these people asking me questions, and so I'm hoping this video provides a little bit of insight, or at least a thought process you want to go through to make a decision. Should you run for office, or should you help somebody who is? So one of the things that is worth mentioning is that people oftentimes make their decision. They say, listen, these guys are obviously idiots or clowns or loons. We have crazies that are running government right now. Clearly, there's no intelligence test for them to get in there. Anybody could do a better job than them. After all, in New Jersey, we recently elected a truck driver who hardly raised any money, and he booted out the Democrat head of the state Senate. If he could do it, I can do it. That's usually the attitude that comes along. But I think that it's important to recognize that the other thing that inspires people to get involved is they think, gosh, we've elected some of the worst people that we could ever find and put them into elected office. I mean, these guys are terrible and creepy and dumb and dumber, right? I mean, this is just really a group of people that how can we possibly do worse? Let's replace them. However, I will point out that it's never as glamorous to be in the spotlight as you might think. And so looking from afar, oftentimes people tend to think, boy, I want to be that guy up on stage, but that's really a small part of what it's like to be in public office. And I want to remind people, because if you're going to do a good job in public office, it's much more of a servant leadership position and role. If you take that attitude, you're far more likely to both be capable at doing the job well when you get there, but also have a more realistic expectation for what it's going to be. Yes, I know there's a lot of corrupt people in office, but if you don't plan on being corrupt, it's harder to get in, but it's also not as easy to be in, and you need to recognize that. This isn't going to be what you typically would experience in either running for office or being in office. You're not going to be surrounded by adoring crowds who love you. That's not typically what happens. You're representing citizens. They've got concerns and fears and issues that they want you to deal with, and most of the time they're not going to be happy with you. So this isn't going to be what it's like. And if you want to be adored, I don't think the political process is a good way to be it. And I know you're not going to be liars like all those guys that are in office today. You promise that you will not, that you will do what you say you're going to do, and all that. Everybody says that when they start to run for office, and most people, I think, are honest when they say it. So this by itself, though, is not enough for you to get elected. So one of the questions becomes, what are some basic background ideas that people should have if they're going to run for office? And I really think that these apply to you no matter what position you're running for. I don't care what it is. These are basic things that if you can answer these questions in a way that makes sense, you will be setting yourself, and honestly, you'll be setting yourself up for a much better outcome if you choose to run for office. And one of the first things is, are you heavily involved in your community? And I think that this really matters, because running for office is like a big marketing campaign. A lot of people need to know who you are. And it is a lot easier if it's not just you and your 2 friends and the 3 neighbors that you know, and that's literally your social circle when you go and get started. It is very difficult to get the word out to tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people to vote for you. It is very difficult. And, in Thurston County, you're going to need 110,000, maybe it could be that many people to vote for you, not just cumulatively. It might be about 160,000 people to vote, but you need about that many people to vote for you in order to guarantee that you're going to win. So what do you have to do to get there? That's a lot of people to reach out and talk to, and it's a lot easier if you have a big social network to start out with. You've already spent your time establishing who you are. Those are people who can promote you to others. They can talk about you. They know you. Makes a big difference, I think, when you're running for office. This is why people who hold elected office at lower levels are oftentimes easier to move up the campaign political ladder, because people already know them. They've been in office for a certain number of years, and people will say, well, they haven't molested anybody or stolen any money, or there's no scandals, so I'll vote for them. Run up. There's a lot of people that'll just make decisions that simply. So just remember that if you have a big social network, it makes it a lot easier. And if you don't, you really got to think through, why are you running for office? Is it just an ego project, or are you serious? Second question, and this is one that I try to get everybody to answer in the beginning when they're asking me whether they should run for office or not, is, are you willing to campaign 100% of your time? Because from the moment you've made that decision, you have to remember that it is not an easy job to get elected, especially if you're going to take out an incumbent, and you need to spend all of your time campaigning. That is your full-time job. That means you're not doing date night, you're going to miss the soccer game with the kids, you're not going out to watch movies at night, you're not watching Oprah at night. You are simply campaigning full-time. It is a hard time. I mean, you really got to go out there. You have to do social events. You have to go out there and do fundraisers. You have to be canvassing. You have to be talking to people, going to events and debates and activities. It is a full-time job if you want to win. If you don't want to win and you just want to lose for sure, definitely don't put your effort into it. But it's much better, trust me, on election night to feel like, to be able to know that you succeeded than the fact that you just put your name on the ballot and went nowhere. It's always better to be out there campaigning full time. Make it work. One of the other things that I ask people a lot, and you got to be honest about this, because I think if you aren't, you're not going to have a very good time running for office, and that is, do you like people? Are you just as comfortable going out and doorbelling a trailer park as you would be maybe in a well-off neighborhood? Are you only interested in talking to people who agree with you or who you're already socializing with? If you're not good at meeting new people, then you're going to be horrible at running for office, and you're going to be probably a terrible politician, which means if you can't run for office and win in a campaign, you're not going to get in office to do those great and wonderful things that you're sure that you can do. This is actually kind of underappreciated. If you doorbell and you lose votes, that's a pretty good indication that you are not really set up for this. And so you really want to be honest, think about ahead of time, that make sure that's something you can do. And finally, this is the one that everybody hates. Can you raise money? Nobody likes to ask for money, but the reality is you're going to need to raise money, because essentially this is a public marketing campaign. And in order to market yourself, you need to have ways of communicating. You have to pay for ads, you have to pay for signs, you have to pay for flyers, you have to pay for videos maybe, some other website, whatever you're doing to promote your campaign. It costs money, it just does. There's no way to avoid that. And if you're unable to raise any money at all, then you're probably not going to succeed. It's not that people who have small amounts of money can't beat people with a lot of money. I've seen it happen many times, but a lot of other things have to align. A lot of stars have to align to make that work. And so it's one of these skills that you have to have. If your answer to all of these is that you can't do any of them, you can't commit the time, you have no social network, you don't like people, and you can't raise money, please don't run for office. You're the wrong person to do it. Which is fine, because many people will say, hey, that is not me. I wouldn't fit those categories. I'm an introvert, I'm a researcher, I don't like talking to people, I freeze when I get in front of an audience, whatever it is. That's fine, because there's plenty of other things that you can do. If you are not that person, it is good to identify that ahead of time and not put your name on the ballot and waste anybody else's time. So what you want to do is go find somebody that does fit those categories, that is serious about what they're doing, shares your belief that you want to support, they care about freedom and liberty, they're going to make a difference if they get into office, support them. Great way to spend your time, and it allows you to volunteer and help somebody. And the truth is, if you want to get elected to office, you're going to need a lot of volunteers, and you're going to have to inspire a lot of people to come and join you and help you and spend a lot of their time helping you. So volunteering for people, that's a great way to go. And I know this sounds very simplistic, but these are just some of the basics, because I get all these calls constantly right around this time of year. And so I hope this video gets you a little bit more focused, because none of this guarantees success. It just at least eliminates those who will certainly fail if you can at least go through that checklist and make those determinations ahead of time. Now, people know I do a lot of this, activism training around the state. Most of my activism training, because I believe in being active all year round, doesn't necessarily have anything to do with campaigns. But since I get a lot of questions about them, I thought I'd do this video and talk about it a little bit now. Now, of course, it's never that easy. It's never that simple. There are no guarantees, and it takes a lot of work. It takes, frankly, a lot of prayer sometimes, but work and prayer together doesn't hurt, and it is something that there are no guarantees, but if you decide you want to make a difference this election cycle, then I would encourage you to do so, and please go through that checklist and make sure you find the right fit for you, what you're interested in, and try to make a difference in your community, because I think we need a lot of people doing that. If you want to learn more, please go to wethegovern.com. Don't forget to share and subscribe to this video. When you go to my website, don't forget to sign up for the free email newsletter. I don't spam you with a lot of stuff, but when I put up new stuff, you'll get emails that way. If you want to financially support what we're doing at We the Govern, please consider doing that as well. But remember, the main thing is the future is in your hands. The future is there for us if we're willing to engage and take it. And the reality is the future belongs to those who show up.